Stop telling people you're chosen. You are not chosen to do ish except within the synagogue of Satan. Clearly, because everything you do, clearly, because everything you do, clearly, because everything you do. There is a Israeli historian named Abraham Pollock, and there's actually a lot of historians prior to World War II, who received awards for saying that the origins of, which is why it was stunning to me to see Kyrie Irving treated in the way that he was treated, 6 steps to get back to your life, because he shared a documentary which was theorizing that the original Jews, I actually didn't watch the end of the documentary, but the point was he was making that documentary suggested that the people that are inhabiting Israel today are not the biblical Jews. That was the point of why he got into trouble. I cannot tell you one way or another. I have not gone into any anthropological research. What I can tell you is that prior to World War II, and you again can pivot to your browser right now and look up a man named Abraham Pollock, okay? Prior to World War II, he extensively wrote about, and the Israeli historians extensively wrote about the fact that they were the Khazars. They were like, yeah, here's the evidence, blah, blah, blah. He received awards from Tel Aviv University. And then suddenly after World War II, they said to him, like, this research was not helpful. And they just stopped printing his books.
The world's knowledge about the Khazars started in the 10th century when Chasai ibn Shaprut, who was the sort of foreign minister of Abdul Rahman III, the Caliph, the Umayyad Caliph of Andalusia, of Muslim Spain, heard from travelers that there was this nation in Central Asia, this Jewish nation. He wrote a letter and received to the king and asked what's going on. He received a letter back. This is from a king of the time named Yosef, who explained what I said before about the king's search for the true religion. It is true that many people over the years have doubted the historicity of the letter. There has a question of whether it's just the king and the royalty or the nobility that converted, or everyone converted. We don't have any literature as such from the Khazars. However, in the past, I'd say 50 years or so, more and more research has substantiated the letter from Yosef. There's some of the descriptions of the Khazar life and the Khazar history seem to be substantiated from other sources. Coins were found mentioning the name Moses. A letter was found in the Genizah, which might have some Khazar writing or Khazar names in it. And therefore, even though there are still people who doubt to this day that Khazars actually became Jewish, I would say that I follow those experts who say definitely there is a historical basis. Now, according to Kuzari, the conversion was in the year 740, the Common Era. Most historians date it to the 9th century, in the 800s.
The Canaanites were a brutal and a wicked culture. They frequently engaged in behavior that was considered obviously immoral and decadent, right? A list of the sins that Israel was told to avoid at all costs. Those sins included the Canaanites, particularly in incest, in child sacrifice, in homosexuality, and in bestiality. Now, in your mind, you're going, okay, that sounds familiar. We spoke about this as well when I was telling you guys about the Khazarian kingdom. And I think somebody asked a question yesterday, like, oh, do you know about the Khazars? And I had mentioned to you that, yes, I'm very aware, by the way, because I think that is what was mentioned also in that documentary that Kyrie Irving shared, was that for a period of time, a lot of Israeli historians were writing books and receiving awards for having traced their lineage to the Khazars. A very similar story with that kingdom before it was crushed by Russia and Persia.
According to the Kuzari, the Khazars were very successful physically, militarily, financially. I don't know how much we can substantiate that, but the basic idea that the Khazars converted and there were this Jewish kingdom, I think is pretty well established now. despite the naysayers. I would just add that there are those who have tried to say that Ashkenazi Jewry is descended from the Khazars and therefore have no relationship to the biological people of Israel, no relation to the land of Israel. That theory, I don't think has anything to recommend it. The Ashkenazi Jewry came from the West. They speak a German language, Yiddish. We have no real way of finding descendants of the Khazars today.
In case you're not familiar at all with who the Khazars are, outside of whether or not you can draw a line from the Khazar Empire, the Khazarian Empire, my understanding, and I have not done enough research into it, essentially it was an empire. And can you fact check it again? This would be in Ukraine, and what would be modern Ukraine? And let me know in my ear when you dig that up, Mark.
We're checking.
Thank you. I'm pretty sure that it was in what would have been deemed modern Ukraine. It all goes back to Ukraine. But essentially, they were worshiping and doing things that were considered so immoral and so corrupt. And I'm talking about sexual stuff. And I'm also talking about in the way that they cheated people, that they were given an option from modern, I would say Iran, but Persia and Russia, like either you convert to one of the faiths that we think will make you more moral, or we will crush you. And so there was this mass conversion in the 8th century, and you can fact check me on that too. I think it was the 8th century where the Khazarians mass converted to Judaism as the faith. And to be clear, it was the people that were running this empire at the top who were just up to no good, and they carried on their corruption. They carried on their sexual deviancy despite pretending to have converted to Judaism. That doesn't mean the people that they ruled over didn't meaningfully convert. I'm sure they did, but the people at the top didn't. And so Russia and I'm saying Iran because my brain is not doing. Russia and Persia teamed up and crushed the Khazarian Empire. And so there has been a theory for a while that what is happening is that the Khazarians are reassembling, and that essentially they want to crush Russia and Iran, which is kind of happening right now, actually, which is interesting to think about. I hadn't even thought about that until right now, that the elites do seem to really want war with Russia and Iran.
Now we come to the others. There was Moshe ibn Ezra. By the way, Ibn means son of, but it's a family name. Moshe ibn Ezra. And then Abraham ibn Ezra, distant cousins. And then Yehudah Halevi, the greatest Hebrew poet since King David. Yehudah Halevi was a physician. He lived in Toledo. He writes a poem which reads as follows: "My heart is in the east, and I am in the uttermost west. I cannot enjoy my food, I cannot rest, because the holy city of Jerusalem is in Christian thrall, and I am tied up in Arab chains." He was a highly respected citizen of Toledo. People came to him. He was a great physician. And also, he wrote a book, and his book is a remarkable work. It's called the Kuzari, and it's based on an event that took place, and that is the establishment of an independent Jewish kingdom in Central Asia in the year 750. Have you heard about that? The kingdom of the Khazari, Khazar Empire. Who were the Khazars? The Khazars were a Turkish tribe, and they, on the warpath, succeeded in establishing control over a very important part of Asia. Their center was on the Volga River, and their empire extended from north of the Black Sea to east of the Caucasus. Why is that important? Because they were on the main path of the trade routes from Asia to Europe. So they controlled it. And they were very strong. They established themselves. And they had been one of the Turkish tribes, should we call it nomadic warriors, like the Mongols later on. The king of the Khazars decided, now that he is head of an empire, he should adopt a civilized religion. Now, he adopted Judaism. Now, why? There are stories, of course. One of the stories, the legend is, he invited a Catholic, a Christian priest, who told him about Christianity, and in the course of describing Christianity, said about Jesus and the Old Testament and Judaism and so on. Then he invited a Muslim, and the Muslim talked about Muhammad and the Quran and the prophets of ancient Israel who preceded. And then he said, you said that Christianity comes out of Judaism, and you said Islam comes out of Judaism. Well, I'd like to speak to the Jews. And as the story goes, he invited a Jewish scholar, and he converted to Judaism. That's the story. Now let's look at the reality, the political reality. The political reality is interesting. At that time, in the year 750, had he converted to Christianity, he would have had to submit himself to the authority of the Emperor of Constantinople, who was head of the Christian world. Had he adopted Islam, he would have had to submit to the authority of the Caliph of Baghdad, who was head of the Muslim world. He didn't want a boss. He wanted to be independent. And I suppose he also had contact with Jews, and he knew about Judaism. The fact is, he converted to Judaism. And then in the course of time, the nobility, his advisors, also converted to Judaism, and then his people. And by the year 900, this was a Jewish kingdom, you could say a Jewish empire in Central Asia.
And one thing, and this is a big thing, by the way, so I'm really hoping that a lot of people who are Jewish are watching this as well, that struck me as really odd when I was learning about Sabbatianism, and this really shocked me to my core because I've always told you guys I grew up with a large Jewish community. All my best friends were Jewish growing up, and I've always seen like the Star of David that is a lot of Jewish people wear as a necklace, you know, and I thought that that was associated traditionally somehow with Judaism. And so I was very surprised, and I will ask the question, do you know the history of the Star of David? Why is it being called the Star of David? And I'm just going to just show you guys this straight up on Wikipedia. So if it's on Wikipedia, basically after they've obscured everything, that just must mean that it's just such an irreversible fact, because you wouldn't even want to admit this. But this is what the entry shows you about the Star of David, because it's actually a very recent thing that has been adopted from the Jewish community. Okay, it's not something stemming from the ancient times. And this is exactly what it reads. It reads that it is a derivative of the seal of Solomon, was used for decorative and mystical purposes by Muslims and Kabbalistic Jews. I want you to remember that, okay? So it's a derivative of the seal of Solomon. King Solomon was used for decorative and mystical purposes by Muslims and Kabbalistic Jews. It also goes on to say that only around 1 millennium later did the star begin to be used as a symbol to identify Jewish communities, a tradition that seems to have started in Prague before the 17th century. I want you to remember that as well. And from there spread to much of Eastern Europe in the 19th century. It came to be adopted by European Jews as a symbol to represent Jewish religion or identity in the same manner the Christian cross identified the religion's believers. The symbol became representative of the worldwide Zionist community after it was chosen as the central symbol on a flag at the first Zionist Congress in 1897. So this is a recent symbol. But I'm going to show you that there is a mention of that star. It is called something else in the Bible. It is referred to, and I'm going to just dig this up for you, something that is known as the Star of Remphan in the Bible, okay? And I'm going to show you that star right now. Here's a picture of it. Oh, you can see if you're Jewish, you're going, oh, that's the Star of David. You can see on that left side there, by the way, that you see a goat, and you see it looks like a pharaoh up top there. So you're going, okay, I don't associate this with Judaism whatsoever. And in the Bible, here's where it's mentioned. It says, "Ye took up the tabernacle of Moloch, and the star of your god Remphan, figures which ye made to worship them, and I will carry you away beyond Babylon." It's also referenced later. It says, "Ye have borne the tabernacle of your Moloch, and your Chian, your images, the star of your god, which ye made to yourself." So what is this referring to? It's referring to the ancient Canaanites.
Diana says, we have a friend who seems to want to delve more and more deeply into conspiracy theories. He told us that the Star of David is actually a satanic symbol widely used in pagan and occult areas. The only thing I can find on the internet about it is that it was introduced by Mr. Rothschild in the 40s and that he was not a believer but had ties to the occult. Can you please tell us the truth behind this symbol? And we are Messianic believers and we would like to be able to confront these anti-Semitic theories with truth. Thank you for your response. All right, well, let me just tell you, Diana, I've heard this stuff before over the years. I heard you are absolutely right. It's born out of anti-Semitic thinking. It's born out of anti-Semitic thinking. People who want to be opposed to Israel will find anything they can to complain about Israel, anything that is accepted as being the things of Israel, whether it being a kippah, or a talit, or a Star of David, or some other symbology that is associated with Israel. They always want to tie it back to the cult. Here's the reason why. Well, we know we don't want to have anything to do with the devil, right? We don't want to have anything to do with the symbols of the devil. And if all of a sudden all of these things that are symbols of Israel are symbols of the devil, well then guess what the logic is? So you stay away from Israel and anything to do with Israel. I want to remind you of something. Israel is the name of the kingdom. That's the name of the kingdom. So do you think there's a possibility that the devil, who hates the kingdom of God, could possibly conjure up some lies to deceive people? To get you to follow a lie and get you to go away from the things of the Lord? Yeah, I think that's been his dominant tactic throughout the entire history of mankind. So here's what I say when somebody comes up to me and wants to talk to me about, well, you know, the Star of David, you know, it's a satanic symbol. Get out of my face. Get behind me, Satan. I'm not listening to your lies. You go sell that lie stuff down in the ditch. You get down there with the rest of your anti-Semitic idiots. We're serving the Lord here. And we're going to pursue the light, not the darkness. And we don't waste our energy on stupid arguments going around to defame other people. Believe me, there's enough demons in this world and there's enough evil in this world. We don't have to go searching for it out of God's people. Let's encourage God's people and strengthen God's people and edify people and seek that which is pure and kind instead of trying to find complaint with something that we see as a common thing associated with Israel or with God's people. What a bunch of wasted time. So I really don't waste any of my time on those people. And what I would say is I'm not interested in discussing any of this with you, and you need to stop wasting your time on this.
Hassan ibn Shaprut, who was chief advisor to the Sultan of Cordoba in Spain, wrote a letter to the king of the Khazars. And he got an answer, and these letters are in pure Hebrew. And you know, for a long time, scholars were debating that, oh, this is not true, these letters were invented, it's fiction. And you know, for a long time, scholars were debating that, oh, this is not true, these letters were invented, it's fiction. Until they discovered letters a few years ago from the Cairo Geniza. You're familiar with the Cairo Geniza? I'll tell you about that. But these letters are in Hebrew, and they were written by Khazarian merchants in Kiev, which later became the Christian capital of Russia. And these Khazarian Jews in Kiev were corresponding with their counterparts in Khazaria, and the letters are in pure Hebrew, and they're Jewish. In other words, you can tell from the language and the expressions that they are traditional Jews, because there was a theory that they were sectarian Jews, that they were Karaite Jews. In any event, this was a Jewish kingdom, and the letters between Hassan ibn Shaprut, who was the minister of the Caliph of Cordoba, and King Joseph II of Khazaria. It's an interesting correspondence in Hebrew. Also, there was a book written, a true historical analysis of the whole history, and it seems that the records indicate that. I'm saying that because the Christians never mentioned that. Why didn't the Christians talk about that? It was very important. Because in Christian theology, there cannot be a Jewish kingdom. It goes against the church fathers. The church father says there will never be a Jewish authority and Jewish kingdom. So the Christians didn't talk about it. But between the Arab historians and the Jewish correspondents and the Turkish and Greek indications, it's clear that there was such. By the way, as I said, their center was on the Volga River, which empties into the Caspian Sea, and they also controlled the eastern slopes of the Caucasus Mountains.
Now, this guy is very controversial. We don't have that much time to get into it. We'll have to save his story for another day, but he essentially becomes the face of Auschwitz. He published tons of literature about what happened while he was at Auschwitz as a survivor, and then other survivors of Auschwitz said he was making it all up and he was never there, and then they couldn't find him in the records, and they said, I mean, this is another Auschwitz survivor, that he was stealing the identity of another person who was there, but it wasn't him. It gets crazy. I only mention that because you will again see that identity crisis could have been the name of this series. It seems to be a running theme in this family, and also identity crisis is a running theme with anything that involves Israel.
This story begins in October 1949, 1 year after Israel's formation. This is when Netanyahu was born, the second child of a historian. His paternal grandfather was a rabbi and a Zionist writer. His name was Nathan Milikowski. Later in life, he Hebraized his surname from Milikowski to Netanyahu, a name which means God has given.
This is Yair Netanyahu's DNA test that has been leaked. You can see right there his Y DNA is RM198. Descendants of RM198 come from Poland, Russia, Germany, and other European countries. Does this look Semitic to you? Does this look Middle Eastern?
Maybe you will ask, who is Mr. Milikowski?
I did ask, and you told me, but I didn't know before.
He is Benjamin Netanyahu. This is the real name.
Prime Minister or President of Israel.
The colonial settler state of Israel.
Now, in 1000, the Eastern Slavic kingdoms had been converted to Christianity. And so the Prince of Kiev, who was a Christian, combined with the Emperor of Constantinople, and they attacked the Jewish kingdom of Khazaria. And the Khazarian kingdom came to an end as an empire, but there were still Khazarian Jews living there. An interesting thing is that I met Jews from that group in Israel. One of them married my wife's cousin. So we were at the wedding. It was very nice. They got married, so I was speaking to her husband. By the way, he looked like a warrior in Genghis Khan's army. And I asked him, what language did you speak? So he says, Tat. I said, Tat, what is it? I don't know, that's the language we spoke. So I said, why don't you count from 1 to 10 in Tat? So he counted from 1 to 10. I said, okay, it's Persian. It's a Persian dialect. Then he tells me, you know, we are all descendants of converts. All of us. I said, really? What makes you say that? He says, well, it's a tradition.
Yeah, I think that it should be abundantly obvious at this moment in time, at this moment in history, who God's chosen actually are. And it ain't the Polish Bibi Netanyahu.
Yehudah Halevi wrote this book, the Kuzari, because he knew the story of the king of the Khazars converting to Judaism. But he didn't go into the details. He just wrote a dialogue, a Platonic dialogue between the Jewish scholar and the king of the Khazars. And that's the meaning of the book. That's the whole purpose of the book, the Kuzari. It's Yehudah Halevi's philosophy of Judaism. It's a beautifully written book, and it is the first great Zionist document written, namely a Jew living in exile and speaking about the hope of the Jews to rebuild the land of Israel and the hope of the Jews to live as independent, free, independent people in the land of Israel. He explains all of this in the course of the dialogue, and of course explains the the beauty of Judaism and the greatness of Judaism and so on. Yehudah Halevi also was you could say, dedicated Zionist, because with all of his success, and he was a physician who had a good reputation, he still felt he doesn't want to continue living in a Christian country, because Toledo had become Christian by this time. And Yehudah Halevi set out to go to the land of Israel. He actually went. It is reported that he landed in several North African cities, in the Kairouan and in Egypt. And that's the end. We don't know after that what happened. Of course, there are legends about what happened, but we don't know what happened. He disappears. He was about 75 years old at the time. And the journey was not easy, especially going from one hostile environment to another. And the environment in the land of Israel was very hostile because the Crusaders were still on the march against the infidels, and Jews are just as infidel as Muslims.
You describe yourself as a Talmudic Jew, and I've learned what's in that Talmud, and I encourage other people at home to learn what is in that Talmud so that you know what Ben thinks of you, because he doesn't just hate me, he hates you too, white men. He hates all black people, okay? If he's following the rules of the Talmud, I mean, when I say hates, they think that we're animals.
Is Candace Owens correct when she says, quote, they think that we're animals, that they have a right to own us? What does the Talmud actually say about Negroes? Can we confirm that they think of Negroes as animals? This is coming from the Talmud Barakah 58b. Quote, on seeing pockmarked persons, one says, blessed be he who makes strange creatures. An objection was raised if one sees a Negro, a very red or very white person, a hunchback, a dwarf, or a dropsical person, he says, blessed be he who makes strange creatures. Our rabbis taught on seeing an elephant, an ape, or a long-tailed ape, one says, blessed is he who makes strange creatures. Question, why is the Negro referred to as strange creatures? Why is the Negro in the same breath with apes? This is where the teachings, Negro, a beast in which the Negro is said to have been created on the fifth day of creation. This is the origins of the so-called curse of Ham, in which all Abrahamic faiths taught, and some groups continues to teach. Sanhedrin 108b says, quote, our rabbis taught 3 copulated in the ark, and they were all punished, the dog, the raven, and Ham. The dog was doomed to be tied. The raven expectorates his seed into his mate's mouth. And Ham was smitten in his skin. The footnote 34 says, from him descended Cush the Negro, who is black-skinned.
That they have a right to own us, that they have a right to make us worship them.
And you know what else, Jim? I just want to say this to our Christian friends, you know, just to call it as it is and say it straight out, you know, you guys are worshiping one Jew. That's a mistake. You should be worshiping every single one of us, because we all die for your sins every single day. And that's exactly what's going on here. Yeah. We're all God's firstborn, and we're dying for your sins right now because the Jewish people in the land of Israel are the bulwark against the orcs. Okay? The orcs are coming not to a theater near you, but to your home.
Stop telling people you're chosen. You are not chosen to do ish except within the synagogue of Satan. Clearly, because everything you do is the manufacturing of lies, bullying, getting people to write articles, smearing, libeling. Yeah, it's pretty explicit what kind of people engage in that sort of stuff. So anyways, let me stop telling you guys how I really feel.
Now, this may come as a surprise to you, but as many as 10,000 Jews served in the Confederate Army, and they served bravely. There was Adolf Proskauer, a recent immigrant from Poland who fought at Seven Pines, Chancellorsville, Gettysburg, and Spotsylvania. Wounded at least 3 times, he just couldn't kill this guy. Then there was Louis Leon, also a recent immigrant, this time from Germany, who was one of the few survivors from his brigade who fought at Gettysburg. Now, he was real hardcore, and 50 years after the battle, he had this to say in his memoirs. I still say our cause was just, nor do I regret one thing that I have done to cripple the North. But there's one Confederate who in some ways topped them all. Judah Benjamin was born in the West Indies, grew up in South Carolina, and made his way to New Orleans, where he also made his fortune as an innovative sugarcane plantation owner with 140 slaves.
Literally, it's like, that's why I say it's a slave owner mentality. It's very obvious that that's what it is. Why are you hosting 300 people to fire someone? What is that? Here's what she did wrong. Here's what she did wrong. And I'm just like the one who doesn't even flinch. Because literally F you. Yeah, literally F you. I don't care. Stop. Kanye was right. He was totally right.
The same people that have stripped us of our identity and labeled us as a color have told us what it means to be black and the vernacular that we're supposed to have. Planned Parenthood was made by Margaret Sanger, a known eugenics, with the KKK to control the Jew population. When I say Jew, I mean the 12 lost tribes of Judah, the blood of Christ, who the people known as the race black really are.
Hitler was, and the Nazis, of course, expanded on Margaret Sanger's approach to eugenics, right? Eugenics was a movement that was born in the United States under hard doctrines of racism with the intent of eliminating the tribe of Judah in the African-American community in this country, right? To eliminate them.
The major problem of Israel is with the young generation of the black community. Black Lives Matter starts there. I had last week a sit-down dinner at my house with 40 people, which are considered the leadership of the black community.
First of all, I am Jew also. The 12 lost tribes of Hebrew. Do the math. Do your research on it. We have got our culture ripped from us and then told we were just simply void of color, which is another definition for black. But if we knew we were a culture and knew we were a people the way the Jewish people know, then we wouldn't abort ourselves. We wouldn't shoot each other dead in the streets and then rap about it. We wouldn't brag about, having sex with each other's wives. We would keep our families together and we would do business together. The most dangerous place for a black person in America is actually in our mother's stomachs, because 50% of black deaths a year in America is abortion currently.
The Jews who were born in Israel, most of them are white. Not most of them, almost all of them are white, including me. I was born in Israel from a country which is called Bulgaria. It's a European country. And I can tell you that in every European country, there are Jews, and there is so-called organization, Jewish Agency, which is trying to take those Jews to Israel. If you track this organization, you can find out that this is not an Israeli organization. This is an American organization. Jewish Agency is an American organization which has the exclusive right to decide who is Jewish and who is not on this planet, and who to be taken to Israel and who's not. Now, if you do research, you will find out that in Africa, in Black Africa, they're looking for Jews only in Ethiopia. They bring Jews only from Ethiopia. And I can tell you by knowing a lot of people, Ethiopian Jews here in Israel, that they're treated very badly, very badly. And many of them commit suicide because they cannot take it. So they come from some place, Ethiopia, they don't have much there, but they live decent life. And when they come here and try to be humiliated and so on, some of them cannot even take it. Now, what I'm trying to say is that why from each white country this Jewish agency is trying to bring Jews, and when it's about Black Africa, they're going to Ethiopia, and this is where they stop. The only one place. Now, because of the same thing, they're trying to do the white supremacy here. They try to bring white guys here and to take the supremacy over Arabs, which are the local citizens, and over blacks, which are so far they're only the Ethiopian Jews. Now, what I'm trying also to say is that another question is why? Why America needs Israel? In Israel there is no oil like in other Middle Eastern countries. There's nothing they can be attracted to. But why do they do all these things? Why do they invest money, bring white people and so on? When they build their system of white supremacy, just like in America, they build in Israel. Why? And I can tell you why. Because the true Jews, according to the Bible, you can check it in the Bible, you can read Job 30:30 and some other places. They have never been white. They have been people of color. And they have not stopped in Ethiopia. They were in Ethiopia, Sudan, and they have settled in West Africa. From West Africa, they have been taken as slaves to America. Brothers and sisters, blacks of America, it's you. You are the true Hebrews. You are the true Hebrews from the Bible. America gonna do everything, gonna invest as much money as it has, gonna fight as much wars as they can, gonna invite as much weapons as they can, just to hide this away from you.
My problem with what you've said, I'll be straight with you, is that if I, as a white man, posted tomorrow on my Instagram, I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on black people, what would you think?
Jew.
No, if I said black people, what would you think? If that was what I posted.
Well, did you accept that black people, you accepted that black people are Jew? Or
I'll come to that in a moment.
You know what you are? You're an ancient Israelite.
Ancient Israelite, that's who we are. That's who we are. So if you give me time, if you give me time, all that he said,
no, we don't have
so many years.
I know. Look at this. This is pages and pages of notes. And I promise we'll give more teaching. But here is my challenge to you.
All right.
I'm hearing some of your traditions. It's like the days of the Bible.
Yes.
Do you want to remain ancient Israelites or you want to be Jews?
Tell us more about your work and the coursework that you're doing, because you are a real advocate for this topic and why it's so important in the times we're living in.
I appreciate it. I think the most important thing is like the if so, so what? So we've established that there are these individuals over here, but the next question is what do we do about it? Is everyone supposed to convert and come back to Israel? But if we think that way, there's really 100 million people around the world that have this Israelite identity coming from the tribes, and Israel's, smaller than the size of New Jersey. Is it sustainable to think in the way of having to convert and bring back? And if you look at the Lemba, they don't even want to convert. They said, why are we converting to something we're already part of?
That's why he burned down his life and said, I'd rather rebuild it than let you own 1 ounce of it. And when you do rebuild it and they don't own it, well, then you get into a scary territory, right? You get into a scary territory because what they are willing to do to take when they can't earn it, it's very scary. History tells us and shows us. Black people just got to learn your history, man. You got to learn the minstrel shows, who's behind the minstrel shows. And
well, photos of children dressed in blackface are sparking reaction now from community leaders in Lakewood. The photos were taken during Purim celebration last week, where members of the Jewish community traditionally dress up in costume. News 12 New Jersey's Jim Murdoch fills us in.
The photos began circulating on social media over the weekend and were quickly condemned by Jewish leaders and the president of the Ocean County chapter of the NAACP. One photo shows 2 children with their faces painted black wearing colorful West African-style printed clothes. A second photo taken from the back shows 2 other children wearing dark makeup with afro wigs and sweatshirts with the slogan Black Lives Matter written on the back.
Poor taste. Actually sick.
Public school board attorney and community leader Michael Inselbuck says the blame lies on the parents.
Assemblyman Dov Heikkinen of Borough Park, Brooklyn, in a picture on his son's Facebook page. The Assemblyman, a staunch defender of Jewish civil rights, is wearing what appears to be an afro wig, darkened face, sunglasses, and an orange jersey. He said he was trying to portray a black basketball player during yesterday's Purim holiday. Purim is a holiday when Jewish people celebrate not being annihilated in 13th century Persia. During Purim, Jewish children and some adults dress in costumes, give gifts to friends, and feast.
Purim, you get dressed up. You
And again, if you've seen the pictures of what people look like, it's everything you can imagine and what you can't imagine. It's bizarre, it's crazy. People get dressed up as Indians. People get dressed up as black. Never meant to offend anyone. So I realize that people see it that way, but it was not meant in that fashion at all, period.
As soon as I saw him put on the blackface, I thought, when in the history of our country did it become non-political to be blackface? We accepted that very easily, but as it moved on, at some point, you would never do that today. When did that kind of stop?
It's a very astute observation. One thing that, again, many people have said about the jazz singer is that the heyday of blackface was actually the middle of the 19th century. And by the time that we see it here in 27, blackface was really on its way out. And so it's interesting that other, again, Jewish performers, Eddie Cantor, Sophie Tucker, were doing blackface as part of their routine. So it was multiple Jewish performers doing this. But you're right, it was definitely, as we might term today, it was already becoming not PC, but still being used by certain people in this time period.
You know, the truth behind the Jim Crow laws and even when you learn about the Klansmen, I mean, the things that happened.
This could be anywhere in mainland Spain. I've only been to Spain one time, but this could be Madrid. Could be Barcelona. I thought in the U.S. we had made this out as kind of unpopular, but they're still rolling with it in Spain, apparently.
Would you be surprised if I told you that there were Jewish members of the Ku Klux Klan? New York Times state Klan leader hides secret of Jewish origin. Klan leader here hiding the secret of his Jewish origin. Preaches anti-Semitism. October 31st, 1965. This is a Jewish guy right here. And these is just some highlights from the article. It says a 21-year-old Queens man, Daniel Burrows, was identified on October 20th as the Grand Dragon of the Ku Klux Klan, in charge of New York State at hearings of the House Committee on Un-American Activities. Actually, Mr. Burrows carries a Klan card identifying him as King Kleagle, or chief organizer for the United Klans of America.
I mean, this is him doing, Ku Klux Klan imagery with swastikas and so on. It's so brazen. It's so taunting. And you talk about people who are directly attacking people. He's directly attacking Jewish people when he does this and making them feel extremely uncomfortable, extremely threatened by this, because he's got 32 million people following him on X alone. His social media firepower to galvanize hate against the Jewish people is being laid bare, isn't it, in real time?
Just a question for you. When you saw the Klansman hoodie, why did you say taunting against Jewish people, but didn't mention anything about black people? Yeah, but it's just interesting that of the two things you chose to lean into Jewish people and not to speak about what the Klansman hood represents. And all they had to do was control our textbooks and keep us all fighting each other. And you're out here talking about what the white man has done. Who do you think tried to genocide the white man in Europe, right? Yeah, take a look at that. I keep telling you, watch that PBS documentary that they came after me hardcore for speaking about. What's the savage piece? Yeah, those are your ancestors, guys. Yeah, you are European, like white Europeans.
Then let's be truthful about it, because the Holocaust isn't about race. No, it's not about race.
It's about a different race.
But it's not about race. It's not about race.
What is it about?
Because it's about man's inhumanity to man. That's what it's about.
But it's about white supremacy. It's about
but
going
it's
after
not, it's
Jews
not about
and gypsies and
but these are two
Romas.
white groups of people.
Well, they
How
go
do we
after black
but
people,
how-
too. And they go
But
after
you're missing the
homosexuals.
point. You're
Yeah.
missing the point.
Yeah.
The minute you turn it into race, it goes down this alley. Let's talk about it for what it is. It's how people treat each other. It's a problem. It doesn't matter if you're black or white, because black, white, Jews, everybody eats each other.
We have never had a black female president. I still have to pay taxes.
We've never had a
the whole
Jewish president.
concept is no taxation without. Well, we have had a white male president. We've had like 45 of them.
Whether Jews count as white or not has been sort of an object of debate for
You do.
quite a while. We do. Okay.
You do.
So, I mean, it depends according to whom, and that's a pretty recent development. Okay, so.
Basically everyone. It's a religion.
Well, joining us for our weekly segment, Bottom Line, is Allgemeiner CEO David Efune. So, David, let's jump right in. Genetically speaking, are Jews white?
Well, Natasha, it's important to understand, firstly, the intense sensitivity that this question has for the Jewish community. And actually, it's coming up at a personally very relevant time for me. Today is the anniversary of the passing of my great-grandfather, David Weinstock, who was arrested by the Nazis in Vienna in September 1939. And he was taken to the anthropological department at the Vienna Museum of Natural History, and he was subjected to, together with 440 other Jews, to degrading tests and measurements because he was considered by the Nazis to be of an inferior race. So it really is the height of irony and insult that when Jews express concern about anti-Semitism being ignored and a blindness to anti-Semitism, they're then lumped into the white category.
I want to get Dr. Meyer's opinion on this. Classifying it as white Jew, because we know there's black Jews, you know. How does that make you feel? How does that initially hit you when I say, yeah, you know, if I said black and white Jewish relations?
I guess that's mostly what I deal with is in my courses is those interactions. I think, again, in America, most Jews are Ashkenazic Jews who are white. Sometimes part of the problem between the two communities is that some people will take advantage of that, will use their whiteness as a way of promoting themselves, as a way of integrating themselves into whatever community they want to be in by removing themselves and denigrating themselves from some other community. Right. I find that problematic.
Jewishness is categorized as whiteness.
This feels like Christmas morning. I got a 23andMe Ancestry and health kit. I think that I kind of want to start with the Ancestry side. And it says Ancestry composition. I'm 49.9% Ashkenazi Jewish. That's not a huge surprise to me at all, since my mom's side of the family is completely Jewish. My dad's side is not Jewish though. So let's go to there. Let's see what's going on. This is like, I feel really like on the spot. Okay, so I'm 100% European, which again is not a huge surprise to me, but it's just funny seeing it like that. I'm 49% Ashkenazi Jew, totally. British and Irish and German and French, a little bit Scandinavian, Northeastern European. Yeah, it's not super exciting, but I kind of know all of that information. I didn't realize how much of my family was from Germany, though.
Ladies and gentlemen, my DNA. Now, I bet you thought it was going to be a lot crazier than that, right? Now, you might ask yourself, why is it illegal to obtain this in the state of Israel? Because it proves through your DNA that Jews around the world have no ancestral ties to the land of Israel. But according to Israeli law, the fact that I have Jewish blood gives me more right to somebody's home and land in the land of Palestine than somebody that has been there for hundreds of years. Doesn't make sense.
This TikTok caused a storm online, with many debating what his results, which show no trace of being from Palestine or the Middle East, despite being Jewish, mean. DNA testing to prove Jewish ancestry is a hot-button political issue in Israel. For example, Israel's chief rabbinate has pushed for the ancestry DNA tests to be allowed to prove Jewishness in certain cases. In particular, many Jews who've emigrated to Israel from the Soviet Union, who may not have had the necessary paperwork that shows they are Jewish, have sought to get genetic tests done to show they are Jews. In 2019, a political scandal erupted when it appeared Russian Jews were secretly submitting DNA tests to the rabbinate in order to obtain the right to move to Israel.
I was told welcome home because I'm Jewish. Every single person who's Jewish that steps off the plane, especially for their first time in Israel, is told welcome home. Let's just sit with that for a second. This right here, this is my actual ancestry. I am 88% Ashkenazi Jewish, and none of my ancestors are from the Middle East.
I'm white. I'm white. Unseasoned. A Caucasian.
Unlike what the believers of the Indo-European hoax claim, the white-looking people in this region are not descended from the ancient mythical Indo-Europeans. These people are mostly Turks or descended from Turks. For example, here in Iran, up to 40% of people are Turks, and I don't know how many of them are descended from Turks, meaning are related to Turks. And the most white-looking people of Iran are mostly Turks, but there are also Russian, Georgian, and Armenian people too living in this region. And that we all know that Turks are not an indigenous people to this region. They came from southern Russia and the Central Asia in recent centuries. And they cannot be an indigenous people to this region. The ancient inhabitants of the ancient peoples of the Middle East were all different types of black people, different groups of black people. Assyrians were a black people, Persians were a black people, Elamites were a black people, and Arabs, yes, were a black people. That's why you see Assyrians have depicted themselves with curly hair, curly beard, and dreadlocks. That's why you see Persians have depicted themselves with curly hair and curly beard. And even there are many wall paintings found in Susa in which Persians have depicted themselves with black skin, have painted themselves with black skin. So therefore, Persians were black people, not a so-called Indo-European. And I believe that Persians, Assyrians, Arabs, and all of the ancient inhabitants of the Middle East were an Ethiopian type of people, the so-called Semitics, an Ethiopian type of people. People like the Somalis, like Ethiopians, like Eritreans, like Djiboutis, like dark-skinned Yemenis. You know, they weren't a white people. Why? Because the temperature here in this city goes up to 50 degrees Celsius in summers with a high intensity and a UV index of 12. White people cannot endure this heat. They cannot tolerate this heat. So they cannot be indigenous to this region. Because we semi-white looking people cannot stand this heat. We cannot go outside too much in summers. But how can white people be indigenous to this region? And I don't say this because I'm racist. As you can see, I'm not a black person, and I look like look mostly like whites than blacks. I just want to tell the truth that the ancient inhabitants of these regions, from Babylonians, Assyrians, Elamite, Persians, Jews, were all black. Please stop whitewashing history.
These are your ancestors, and with propaganda, they basically mow the lawn. They get you as white men to sign up and agree to murder white men on the other side of the world. It's white men murdering white men, and for different reasons being propagandized. Wake up. Like, we all need to wake up and lock arms against sheer evil. And the military-industrial complex is sheer evil. And the psychological games they are playing with people, they're playing on people, is sheer evil. What Charlie was going through in the end, because of Jewish donors threatening him, I'm going to take everything, if you even let Tucker speak, over speech, is sheer evil.
What's your thoughts? Please be respectful with your comments. Also, please click the like, click the notification bell, and subscribe to this channel.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this back, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was Abraham, born in the city of a black man called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.